I think of delegation as like a fishing line. We got some fishermen, I'm sure, around, and I know we have them within the school. Um, the idea of that fine line that you can barely see, and sometimes it gets lost, but the fishing line is still there. And I like to think of delegation as that fishing line connection with somebody. I may not be able to see it, but I still have some connection to what I've delegated. So if I delegate something off to someone, it's not just dumping it onto them and just saying, well, that's yours, you run with it. Let me know if you have any questions. I think that's in the busyness and in the weight and the responsibilities and the load that so many of our leaders carry, ministry leaders, nonprofit leaders. Um, I think we can get uh, kind of waylaid by the idea that if I've delegated it, that it's no longer mine. Well, no, if I'm a leader, I have to be able to still have some tangential connection to it, even if it's not a matter of not trusting, because that's going to lead to, well, do you not trust me because you won't let go of it? And this is not a tug of war. I'm not the fishing line does not become a tug of war where I'm now tugging at somebody else. What I'm saying to them is, we're still in this together. And this is a partnership. And it's not that I've just said, I don't trust you to go do what you need to do, but also keep me informed or let me know if there's something you need help with. We're still connected to it. And helping people see delegation around that instead of delegation around dumping, like I just gave you, have your responsibilities. We're still connected because we're still in this together. And I feel like that's the one of the most powerful lessons. People go, oh, that seems so simple. But yeah, how many times do I not want to step on their toes or make them think that I don't trust them? And so now, instead of feeling empowered, they feel like, somebody's looking over their shoulder.
And I think that what you just said, there is a fine line that I would have really loved you to address. Like there is the line where you stay connected, but you're checking in, they're doing their, so you haven't just dumped it and left them. But then there's the other side where sometimes for some people, the checking in feels like micromanaging.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, and I know that that's probably my weakness is I will come across because I feel responsible that these things are getting done. So I might come across as micromanaging. Actually,
Yeah.
I probably do micromanage a little bit, but it's
Well,
definitely,
join the club. We're in a good company because me too. Me
yeah. So yeah, could you just talk about like where's that in between space?
Yeah, I love that. And so the thing that I have found is that helping set those expectations up front. Here's how we're going to partner. And I can be guilty. Raise your right hand if you're guilty of micromanaging, right? Okay, we're all in this together. So how do I set the frame of that? I do it proactively instead of reactively. So that and I give permission. I think leaders that give others permission to say, are you wondering what I'm doing, or are you wondering that if I'm doing it the way that you want it done? Or tell me more. Like giving permission for team to be able to ask those kind of questions. Set the stage up front, first of all. What's the parameters? What are the frameworks that we're going to be proceeding with? Okay, you have responsibility for this, and I don't want to micromanage. At the same time, I still need to kind of know what's going on. So would it be helpful if we had like a weekly check-in? What would be the best way for us so it doesn't feel onerous or micromanaging to you? But then we're setting up boundaries. That's what we're talking about. We're setting up healthy boundaries. And then how do I help move those into a way that becomes more of a rhythm, more of so that doesn't feel like, it's the same with like 360s. I know I'm using a different idea, but 360, feedback, right? Well, if I only do 360 feedback when there's a problem, now everybody immediately is concerned about the problem and who is the problem and why am I being asked to do this? But if I've proactively set up, in this case, back to my original idea of I've set up, this is our working relationship. This is how we're going to check in with each other. And if it feels too onerous or it feels like I'm giving you the impression that I don't trust you or that I am micromanaging, I want you to say, we can have a code word if it's in a group or something. Hey, you know, I had one that was squirrel. They actually used the word squirrel. Squirrel. Do I see a squirrel out the window out there? And it became like the company joke, but it became the code for, hey, it might feel a little bit, and then we can have a conversation about it later on because now we've had the trust that we're establishing with each other to set those healthy boundaries up front.
Dana, what you just described to me, if I'm the leader and I'm setting that up, then what I have seen, and I mean, I'm guilty of this too. I have seen a leader set up the parameters and give people permission, but then when people push back or question or wonder,
Yep.
that leader gets really defensive and then it just shuts everything down. Like,
It just takes one example of that. You're absolutely right. That this only works when we have enough trust and enough ability to have those conversations. If so, let's use an example. You and I are working on something, and I feel like you're it feels a little bit more than usual. Um, and I have that conversation. First of all, I'm going to have that conversation one-on-one. I'm not going to have that conversation in front of the group, in front of the team, because I want to praise in public and have a conversation that's more coaching in private. So that's like boundary or parameter one. If
Mhm.
that person still gets defensive, now what I've done is I've set up a dynamic where I may have to break through that barrier because we can't, I mean, people feel threatened. We're not going to, I mean, the good Lord gave us lots of defense mechanisms and things that pop up for us. We can't put all of those on pause. I can't just shut that down and say it doesn't exist. I have to say, what are those? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about um, how that's playing out for you. What's going on? Are you feeling? What are you feeling? Tell me how you're feeling, what you're feeling, but be able to unpack that defensiveness or that boundary feeling threatened by a person, because it really comes back to ego. How when I my ego strength or feeling like I'm being diminished or not thought that I'm that my leadership or my value is not important, I'm I'm setting myself up to be kind of lashing out. It's like a little kid, that doesn't get any positive attention, they will get negative attention. If we
Mm.
don't give enough credence to the positive parts of who they are, they end up starting to push back and start to feel like, no, hey, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I want to affirm, how amazing you are for letting us work through this stuff and having the openness to have this conversation. I don't want us to go sideways. I want us to be able to have a great connection and great relationship. And I want to do things that make you happy and are pleased with how our progress is as a team.
Mm.
For us to do that, we're going to have to sometimes lean into conflict. And that's back to our first appreciating differences because there's
Mm.
going to be conflict.